Hello and welcome to another session of Mindful Data Mine. This session is in continuation with our previous session, which is regarding subsetting in SAS. In this session, we will be talking about vertical subsetting. In SAS, there are two statements for vertical subsetting, keep and drop. As the name says, keep is used when we want to keep few columns in a dataset. So whenever we use keep statement followed by the variable name, so only those variables which are part of keep statement will be saved in the dataset. Whereas in case of drop, all those columns which are present after drop will be deleted from the dataset. So now without wasting much time, we'll start with the hands-on session. So for this, I'll create a new dataset C1 using our very own sashelp.cars dataset and we'll run it. Let's check how many columns are there in this dataset first. So there are overall 15 columns and column name is make, model, type, origin, drivetrain, MSRP, invoice, engine size, cylinders, horsepower, MPG underscore city, MPG underscore highway, weight, wheelbase, length. Okay, now let's assume that we have a requirement that we only need to pull out two columns, that is make and model. So for this situation, we can use keep followed by make and model. If you notice carefully, I haven't put any comma in between the two variable name. So in SAS, generally we do not require to put any comma in between two variable names or to dataset names, etc. There might be few situations where we need to, but in general we need not to put any commas and only spaces works. So by putting it in this way, SAS knows, okay, these are two different variables which we need to keep in C2 dataset. Now let's run both the dataset C1 and C2. So when we run C1, we got all the 15 columns, and in C2 we are expecting make and model. So we are getting make and model for all 428 records. Now let's assume that we have a requirement that we need to fetch all the numeric variables from SAS help.cars. So SAS has simplified this thing. So in SAS we can directly use underscore numeric underscore. Okay, so in this way SAS will only fetch all the numeric columns and put it into C3A. So if I'll run this, I'll get all the numeric columns. So if you see, we have 10 numeric columns present in SAS help.cars. These are all numbers. Similarly, if I have a requirement that we need to fetch all the character variables, then simply I can replace it with character. Okay, and I'll name it C3B maybe. Now, if I'll run this, I'll be able to see all the character variables. So if you remember, we have total 15 columns in SAS help.cars. 10 columns are of numeric type, so the remaining 5 will be of character type only. So these are 5 columns, make, model, type, origin, drivetrain, which are all of character type. Apart from this, in case if you have to select multiple columns, maybe if let me just run it again for you. So let's assume that we need to fetch columns between make and origin. So SAS also provides us with a functionality that we can use double dash to pull data between, to pull variable between these two items. We need not to mention all the column or variable names separately. So what I'll do is I'll simply copy paste my old data set. I'll rename it to C4, and here I'll put double dash till origin. Now when I'll run this, I'll get all the variables between make and origin. So we have make, model, type, and origin. Total 4 columns and 428 records. So SAS also provides us with one more feature. So for this I'll take a new data set. What I'll do is I'll go to libraries, and here I'll go to SAS help, and I'll open this dataset appliance. So you see we have columns like units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 up till 24. Then we have cycle. So if we have variable names like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so instead of double dash we can also use single dash for that. So I'll write the A, P, P, L, I, A and C. So what I can do is I can simply use units underscore 1 to units underscore, let's say 13. So it will fetch all the 13 columns. And if I want to fetch cycle as well, I'll write cycle like this. So it will fetch cycle and columns from 1 to 13. Total 14 columns. So we are getting unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up till 13, followed by cycle in the end. Okay. In all the above 5 scenarios, what SAS is simply doing is copying everything from the SAS help.cars, putting it into a memory, and then checking which columns are required, and then putting only those columns into the data set. So for example, in this case, it's putting 4 columns into C4. Now this consumes certain memory and time. To avoid this, SAS has provided us with dataset options as well. So to write a dataset option, what we can do is we can simply write the dataset or data step like we used to write, and instead of writing keep here, like in this case, we can simply put it here. Now whenever we write a dataset option, it should be keep equals to followed by, and it should be in a bracket. So whenever we write a dataset option, it should be in a bracket and it will follow equal to. Then we will need to write the variable names. So if I'll run this, SAS will only fetch 2 columns, make and model, and put it into memory. Then if there is anything required, any work or any calculation needs to be doing or do onto it, it will be done, and in the end it will put all the records in C6. This way we can reduce the consumption of memory, and it will also reduce the overall time required to run the SAS code. So if you run it like this, you will also get the 2 columns. Similar to this, we can also write a dataset option while writing the data into the dataset. That means in C7 in this case. So what I'll do is I simply copy paste it from here. Okay. And let's assume that I'll create a new column here, new call, and I'll use MSRP into 10. The reason why I've put a new column is that I'll write this new column here. So suppose we have a requirement that we want to create a new column which is having a value of MSRP into 10, and in the final data set we only need make and new column. So we can put the keep statement as a dataset option directly here. So whatever the calculation is required, it can go here and simply we can output the same thing here. I'll tell you more usage about keeping a dataset option when it is writing it into it. So let's go to our next example. So let's assume that we now have two requirements. One is to create a data set C8 in which we will have a make and new column, another data set C9 in which we will have make and all the numeric columns. So for such situations, we generally put it here at the dataset option level when we are writing the data. The reason why we do not put it like this keep here, because if we keep something here, then it will be written in both the data sets. But our requirement is such that we need make and new column in C8, and in C9 we need make and all the numeric variables. So this is how we can work with vertical subsetting using keep. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.